Join us, Alex
and Colleen,
self-proclaimed fake-it-till-you-make-it experts as we navigate the highs and lows of being a woman and how the pressure and overwhelm of trying to do it all often leads to feeling like an imposter in our own lives. In today's episode, we sit down with Stephanie Brown, owner of Sky's the Limit. She talks to us about building a wedding enterprise from the ground up and the challenges she has pushed through to become a leader in the industry.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Colleen.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I have a question to ask you. Tell me about your marriage. Tell me about when you got married.
Like what year?
Yeah, what year?
2016.
Did you do the whole big engagement? Did you go to the wedding shows? Did you buy all the magazines? What did you do?
Like, do you know me? Of course, I didn't.
I
do
know.
any
I
of
feel
that.
like you didn't do anything.
We got engaged, I think, a year and a half before we got married, and just because we got engaged in April, so it had to be the following summer. I spent the most time probably figuring out the dress, which I had made, and in the end, didn't really love it, and that's kind of my biggest regret about my wedding. Everything else I loved about our wedding. We did like this beer tasting and had all these like little sample glasses with I had made a little logo for us, and we had all these beer stations and food stations that were pairing. And we did it at SMU because that's where my husband works. So it was all done through their catering, and it was the wedding itself was really, really cool. But I spent most of the time worrying about my dress, and I still to this day would redo the dress.
Still bugs you.
Yeah, because it wasn't really me in the end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So then it's like in pictures there forever. Yeah.
But I was never the person that like thought about and planned out my wedding as a kid. That just wasn't for me. I wanted a nice wedding. Like I wanted it to be a very specific way, but I wasn't, it was not something that I had already thought about or had ideas about.
I planned out every second. It was honestly one of the greatest days of my life. The dress, I loved it. I spent my time in magazines. I had wedding planners. We got married at a church here locally, and then had an amazing reception at the Ward Room and at the Navy facilities. Listen, we had like silver service dining, but of course I had a little girl at the time as well. So we had McDonald's on little silver platters arrived for the little kids at the wedding. I planned every detail of it. I loved the planning of it.
Well, only one of us is still married, so just kidding.
So
that was rude.
That was really fucking rude. Let me tell you.
Sorry.
I think that is the rudest you have been on this podcast. So what you're suggesting is I shouldn't have planned the wedding, and I should have been all willy-nilly like you.
I'm kidding.
And I'd still be married.
Honestly, we were just on a budget too.
Yeah,
it was we really didn't want to spend a lot of money. We did not want to go into debt. So that was mostly why I didn't go into like elaborate planning. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just that joke came to me,
laughing.
and
I don't give a shit. It's funny. It is true though.
I
was on a budget as well, but it was my parents' budget. So I felt like it was a very big budget. And if my mother was listening now, she'd be very upset with me. I was also on a budget for my divorce, let me tell you.
I mean, to be fair, I've only been married for 9 years or something.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good about it.
It's going pretty well. You're married to a phenomenal man. We have with us, the reason I'm bringing up weddings, maybe at some point we'll bring in a divorce lawyer so we can also talk about divorces. But the reason I'm bringing up weddings is we've got Stephanie Brown with us today from Sky's the Limit. Stephanie is a wedding planner, wedding event mega superstar.
I'm a little bit of everything, actually.
Yeah, tell us a little bit.
Identity crisis over here.
Right.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, so I own Sky's the Limit Events. I've been in business, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I've been in business for over 15 years at this point. I started the company when I was 12. I'm just kidding. 12. I was in my 20s when I started it and never thought that it would take off the way that it has. I always had a full-time job. In addition, this was my side hustle. And then shortly after the pandemic, I realized that it was my true passion when I had to go back to an office and be like, oh, this is not for me. But yeah, we plan everything from weddings to corporate events to social events, and you name it, I'm there to plan it. It was so interesting hearing your top of the hour conversation because it's two sides of the coin that I hear from absolutely everybody that I run into. when they talk about like, oh, I never dreamed about having a big wedding and we just threw it together, or like I loved planning the wedding and planned out every single detail. So
I honestly when the wedding was over, I was so let down. Like, yes, I was thrilled to be married, blah blah blah, all
Yeah.
that stuff. But I was so let down that I actually thought I wanted to go into event planning. I thought, this is for me. I
Yeah.
need to plan more weddings. But
I was so relieved when mine was done.
you hear that a lot
There's
too.
so much
and-
pressure, you know?
it is
Yeah.
a lot of pressure, right?
And you hear a lot from people saying that after the wedding, they do feel let down. I call it the post-wedding blues, because it's like you're you're basically, it's like a natural high. Your adrenaline is running throughout planning the entire wedding. And then all of a sudden everything comes to a crashing halt. And it's like, what do I do with my life now?
Yeah.
The event is over. I've spent a lot of money and
Yeah.
this is it.
I also I I hope my daughter doesn't listen to this, because I dreamed of planning her wedding as well. And she eloped in Copenhagen. But let
that's
me
incredible.
tell you,
Her dress.
her dress,
Yeah.
first of all, her wedding pictures, they hired a phenomenal photographer, and their Copenhagen wedding was one of the nicest weddings I've ever seen.
Amazing.
And I wasn't there, obviously. They eloped, but they kept me in the loop. I was on FaceTime with them, with all of the planning, and it was so wonderful. But she didn't want the big wedding.
Yeah, and not everyone does. And I'm not a
yeah.
wedding snob when it comes to that stuff whatsoever. I'm like, with all of my clients and everybody who talks to me about their wedding, because let's be honest, everybody I come across talks to me about their wedding. I'm like, whatever makes you happy, and I stick to that no matter what. Whether a client comes to me and they're like, oh, we're planning a massive wedding and we have a huge budget and this is what we want, I'm like, great. Or they come to me and they say, we're planning a really small, intimate wedding and we don't have a large budget and this is what we're going to do. I'm like, great, either way.
So it's funny you say that, because I would have only ever thought that you would hire a wedding planner if you had a big budget.
No, not all the time. I mean, throughout the pandemic, I did a lot of elopement weddings, just where it was small, intimate, within your bubble type of weddings, or just the bride and groom. And, the costs vary depending on that. Obviously, I'm not going to charge somebody a regular fees if they're having a smaller wedding, but some people just like the ease of like not having to worry about it. And also the reassurance of being like, I'm hiring a vendor team that I know is reputable, because I'm working with a planner who's really experienced and has worked with these companies before, and they don't have to deal with them at all, really.
Sure.
And I would guess too that you would have more insight into how to be more budget friendly and tips and tricks on how to,
Oh, definitely.
stay within a budget that you want to, but get the best out of
Yeah.
it that, a normal person wouldn't have.
Yeah, and I think that with my experience, I can dispel a lot of myths for people as well. When they come and sit down and they feel pressure to do this or that. I have no tolerance for that whatsoever. The societal pressures from family and friends and social media, ever since TikTok, it's been the absolute worst for clients, feeling like they have to do absolutely everything under the sun.
Right.
I dispel all of that right away. Like during our first meeting, I'm like, you do exactly what works for you. You do not have to take out a huge loan to make your wedding memorable and perfect.
Serving up hot brews, refreshing cold drinks, lots of fresh baked goodies, and delicious lunch options. Visit the Mellow Mug in the heart of Larry Utech for dine-in, takeout, or drive-through service. Their spacious cafe offers a casual and inviting vibe that's perfect for everything from enjoying a good book, hanging with friends, or meeting a colleague. The Mellow Mug is your neighborhood spot for great coffee and delicious eats and sweets.
So,
Social media, we've said this numerous times. I always feel bad for the young mums that are raising their kids, and all of the rules on social media. The second they post something about their
Yeah.
kid, people are coming in. Why do you have a pink whatever on that kid? And why are you using this kind of pacifier? You should use this kind of pacifier. Like, no matter what they post on social media, people have crap to say.
Yeah.
And so I never thought about it from a young person trying to get married as well, that everybody's got an opinion, and they must feel like they have to match society's demands or expectations.
yeah, they sure do. And I see the pressure and the stress it leads to firsthand with my clients. I mean, especially leading up the last couple months before the wedding, people are just, I say sometimes they turn into monsters. but they are just not themselves anymore. They're a different version of themselves. I see the stress on their faces as we meet. They're usually not the same people they were. It doesn't even matter how much you help them throughout the planning process because they always have family and friends. And let's be honest, I feel like people get really weird around weddings. Your friends and family with their opinions and the roles and responsibilities they want throughout the wedding. And if you're a people pleaser, like a lot of us are, the stress is unbelievable. And I see that in my clients and I feel terrible for them all the time. I just constantly try to reassure them that like they don't have to, like they still need to like adhere to what's best for them.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot. That says a lot about life in general, that there's so many opinions around us all the time.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to, when you're a people pleaser, it's hard not to listen to everybody's opinions and lose who you are in the process.
There's so many expectations, I think, too, in terms of like if you've had long-term friendships or family members about who's going to play what role and what that means. And people want to have like kind of a little bit of ownership over your event. And I could think it would be.
It's so true. And then it comes down to like who's paying some of the bills for the wedding.
Right.
And,
And then their say.
And their say and how many people they can invite.
Yeah.
And, I forgot
it's a common thread, especially since I find that weddings have become super intense, especially since the pandemic. I don't know what it was. It's like this switch flipped and people, it just has become this super intense do or die situation. It's like if things aren't exactly how the person wants them to be or how their family or friends wants the day to be, then life is essentially over at that point, which is so not true.
Yeah.
It's one day of your life that you are spending quite a bit of money on, but also like it's meant to, I hate it when clients lose sight of what the day is all about, and that's celebrating them and their union.
It's true. And 20 years later, or 12 and a half in my case, you're sometimes looking back and the funniest memories or the greatest memories from your wedding are the mistakes that happened or who wore that ridiculous dress or who showed up with some ridiculous boyfriend or where's that person now? Like
something.
Right. So it's those are the issues tend to be the memorable things years later.
But I barely even remember my wedding day.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a blur, and I know that I enjoyed it and I was really happy with how it went, but if like I don't remember the specifics of it that much. And someone had told me that too. Like you probably won't remember that much of the day. So that there's that too. Like you go through all of this planning and spending and coordinating, and then you're kind of like it's a blur.
Yeah, that is so true. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell my clients to like take a moment throughout the day to breathe and take it in. They don't. I didn't. And I was a wedding planner at the time. Like I didn't even take my own advice. So, I mean, that's always a thing too. But like, it's just crazy, the intensity of it all right now.
I feel like I did it all right. I feel like I took it in. I felt the moments. Anyway, the wedding was great. The marriage was shit. But the wedding was fantastic, right?
1 out of 2 ain't
bad.
bad.
Can't do it all. Yeah. You own Atlantic Wedding Showcase.
I do.
Yes. So tell us about that.
Oh my
'cause
gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a full circle thing for me because I was a wedding vendor at this wedding show for years and years and years, never thinking for a second that I'd ever own it. But the opportunity was essentially dropped in my lap right like a couple months before the pandemic.
Oh, fun timing.
Yeah. It's nobody's fault. Nobody knew it was going to happen. So the person who owned it wanted to retire and wanted to pass it on to me. And so I was like, well, you know what? This could work. I mean, I was striving at the time to be a leader in the industry, and what better way to position yourself than own a large scale wedding show, right? So I purchased it, and everything was going to plan to host a spring event, and whammo, we were hit. So not a great time to buy a business that's centered around hosting a couple thousand people in one room. But yeah, so after the pandemic, we came back so strong. I had widespread support from the industry, from industry adjacent companies that wanted to be involved. Everybody just wanted to get out and celebrate and do something. I was really a huge supporter of having this platform to support local. Part of my brand is supporting local. I just love supporting small businesses. I know how hard we all work. So having this platform it's really close to home for me. It's really close to my heart. I know how hard wedding vendors work, like photographers, planners, florists, like rental companies. It's insane. Our summers are a blur. So we ended up, this year was our most successful year. So I've owned it since 2019. This year we hosted a major show at Pavilion 22 on the waterfront. I have had over 80 vendors. Like the place was packed and over 1,000 attendees. So like,
Congratulations.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
It was
that's
a huge undertaking, and I set out to completely revamp and rebrand the show because no offense to the old owner, I think she was aware also that it was dated.
Yeah, it was getting
Right?
tired.
It was
or whatever,
getting tired, and the attendance wasn't what it was used to be for vendors and attendees alike. So I was like, yeah, it's my baby now. I'm going to revamp it completely. Did that all myself. And I was like, oh my God, this worked. Like, people want to be here. What's going on?
So let's talk about imposter syndrome because you have two successful companies. When you look back at your journey, do you feel like you've truly embraced this success, or is imposter syndrome creeping in?
Very much creeping in. Can I say it's like half and half?
Oh.
At some points, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a badass. Like, I'm so good at what I'm doing here. Like, I'm creating something and I'm proud of myself. But at other times, I'm like I just said, like, oh my God, people want to be here. They want to come to this event. They want to hire me to plan their wedding. Like, do they know me? Do they actually know who I am? Why would they trust me to do this?
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it is really cyclical that way. And I think a lot of people can relate to that sort of 1 minute feeling like you're on top of the world and the next minute being like, wait, what am I even doing here?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like this past year, not just 2025, like since like January last year, I've done a lot of work on myself. And I feel like I'm finding my way more and more. But a couple years before that, I've been lost, to be honest. And I was facing the imposter syndrome thing every single day, especially when it comes to the comparison game on social media.
Oh, yeah.
I've worked on that a lot. And now you do realize that, social media is not always all it's cracked up to be. Obviously, we all know this. What people put out there most of the time is a myth, but we all love it as well. So I've really worked on that aspect of it, and it has helped me a lot. But yeah, there are just times where you're like, you question everything you do, especially when it comes to like being actually hired to execute these things. You're like, what?
One of the ways to combat imposter syndrome is to actually listen to how awesome the people in your life think you are. If you're looking for the perfect gift for a loved one, where you can tell them all of the things that make them special, visit my Drawbridge Creative Etsy shop and purchase a Things We Love About You custom poster. With several styles to choose from, it's a fabulous gift for any milestone birthday, anniversary, retirement, or just because.
Where do you think your imposter syndrome stems from?
That's a great question. I think it's many different avenues that it's stemmed from. The older I get, the more I get to know myself and realize maybe where it's come from. And honestly, the first time I heard the term imposter syndrome, I was like, that resonates with me so much. It was never a thing before, but I think everybody felt it, right? Growing up was difficult for me. I grew up in Halifax, but I grew up in a family where we were well below the poverty line. So starting as a child, I never felt like I fit in, never felt like I was part of the cool crowd, always felt like I was a bit different. And I own that now. I've always been a bit different, and that's great to me now. But as a kid growing up, you feel like it was almost like the path was set in stone for you. Once you know you're in a family situation like that, you're kind of slated and expected to never achieve anything. So as a child, I felt like I was a classic underachiever. And I can't help but think maybe my situation would have been different in ways if I had a different family situation. But also, I think that helped shape me into the really strong woman that I am and made me set forth on a path as an adult where I would never allow myself to be in that situation or my family, right? So I think it stems from that, and it carries on as an adult, obviously, like the traumas that come from childhood. And then I have a late diagnosis of ADHD.
On the club.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
I feel like that has made everything make sense for me. And I was only diagnosed last spring. I've gone to therapy to help with that, but I've never been treated medically or anything or taken medication, which is fine, works for some people, but I wanted to try this path first. But I found that has clicked a lot of things for me. A lot of things have been like, oh, that's why like I was different when I was a kid and why I grew up and felt like I never fit in. And then that stuff was only reinforced for me in adulthood, unfortunately, because I came into an industry. When I first came into the wedding industry, there wasn't a lot of wedding vendors in Halifax, and it was cutthroat.
Oh, really?
So I came into an industry where you weren't accepted right off the bat just because you were new.
Oh.
Because we all know what Halifax is like. We're a little bit behind the times
yeah.
sometimes. So
And very clicky.
yeah,
it can be
so
pretty clicky.
and the wedding industry was so clicky. Oh my God. And I actually I fought against it at that point. I was like, no, I'm here. This is where I want to be. And I'm going to set forth to make sure every wedding vendor that comes after me is going to feel welcomed.
Oh, what a nice
awesome.
way to look at it, though.
But at the same time, in my head, I was going, who do you think you are?
Yeah, right.
Why are you even
But
here?
you were fighting for
Yeah.
yourself at the same time that you're
Yeah.
thinking, well, I'm also going to help people coming behind me.
Yeah,
So that-
exactly.
yeah.
Because I never wanted anybody to feel the way that I felt when I first started. Because I was a person just like everyone else trying to make my way in an industry and create my own business.
Would you have been that kid at school too, that as new kids arrived at school, you would have embraced them so they didn't feel, or you didn't?
No, not whatsoever. I was
Yeah.
a major introvert when I was a kid. I had no friends growing up. And I think it was just, I was quiet. And I don't know when I came out of my shell, maybe in junior high. I started to come out of my shell a bit more, but like young, no.
ADHD is shocking, isn't it? I mean, I was diagnosed 6 months ago, and you were diagnosed shortly before me,
Yeah.
maybe. And the late diagnosed ADHD has been very eye-opening, very shocking when you start looking back at things. And I'm not now. I've kind of gotten over it. But when I talked about it on this podcast, when we first talked about our ADHD, and at the time I was really, really pissed off that
Yeah.
I was 56 years old getting diagnosed
Yeah.
with ADHD,
Yeah.
and who would I have been or what would have become of me if I
yeah.
had gotten diagnosed earlier and
Yeah.
had some help for that sort of stuff.
It's almost like you're grieving it.
I did.
And that's exactly how I felt as well. And what I think I realized very quickly was like ADHD was just not much of a thing when I was young. It wasn't. It presents itself so differently in females as well. So like it wasn't targeted for like teachers to like pay attention or parents to pay attention. It was like ADHD was branded as that really hyper boy in your class that can't pay attention and always gets in trouble.
Right.
Right. So
Right. And the hyperactivity part of it, like you think of that hyper boy, you're not thinking of all of the crazy stuff that's going on in your
Yeah.
head. Like I don't present as a hyper person,
No.
but there's a lot of crazy thoughts that are going on in my mind. And so with the diagnosis, it is tough, but I think but at the same time, you talk about it and you've really made me realize, Alex, that there is a little bit of a superpower with the ADHD.
Yeah, I think so. If you can figure out how to tap into it.
Yeah.
I see it with my son all the time. And he does struggle socially because he is different.
yeah.
But I always tell him like, that's going to be your power later on. Right
Yeah.
now, kids just don't get it. But
Yeah,
that's
I
what's
definitely
going
felt
to.
like that was the case with me. Like I definitely was different. I struggled socially big time, and I look back. I feel really bad for that little girl. I'm like, I wish you knew that as an adult, this was going to be like you could harness this, and it was going to be like what set you apart from the crowd.
Right. That's why I
yeah.
try to have those
Yeah.
conversations with him because
Yeah.
I don't want him to try to change it. Because I think it really will be once he has a chance to meet people that can appreciate those kind of things.
For sure.
I think it's fascinating that you're doing it the unmedicated route.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm doing it the medicated route.
As a lot of people are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no,
whatsoever.
and there's nothing wrong with the way you're doing
Yeah.
it. But I'm fascinated because as soon as I started taking the medication, it was an immediate help for me. Yours is probably a little bit of a slower help, but you're deep diving into therapy and
CBT,
some-
is that the...
It's just general therapy really that I've been kind of invested in for the last couple of years, and then I went to get my diagnosis, and then just general therapy through that, because I do have a lot of childhood traumas that need to be worked through that directly relate to the ADHD and really help that. I've found with me what has helped immensely is diet and exercise, especially in the last year. I made the commitment to myself that I would change those things. And that has calmed my mind so much.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, exercise is so
Well,
good for mental health.
I've been
You've
self-medicating with exercise since I was 14, I think.
Yeah.
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 I've been self-medicating with food, I think,
Well, that
for
too.
my entire life. But yeah.
That
you
too.
know,
That's why the exercise is so important.
right. Yeah.
And it's funny because giving myself a little bit of structure,
Yeah.
more, and because you got to remember, like I only started working full time for myself in 2021. So like I had the structure every single day of getting up, getting ready, going into an office, sitting at a desk, and having the side of my business as well. But once I started working for myself and being undiagnosed ADHD, I was like,
Right.
what do I do?
Right.
But then having the every morning getting up, going to a spin class, coming home, eating, sitting down, doing my work, having that structure. As much as ADHD people say they hate structure, it actually helps quite a bit.
Structure's so
I
important.
love structure.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a coping mechanism too that we put in early on.
Definitely.
At least I know that for me, having a routine and being on routine. If I don't have that, then everything starts to fall off the rails for me.
I didn't realize until I was like full time working for myself how much I actually needed it, because I just always had it.
A lot of young women discover that they're ADHD when they're out of school. So they've gone through university or they've gone through high school. Usually it's at the end of high school. They're coming out of high school where you have that structure of all of your classes and your day's really laid out for you. And all of a sudden you go into university where it's willy-nilly all over the place. And that's when a lot of young women realize there's something not right
Yeah, it's
here.
true. I guess it was
Yeah.
delayed with me. It was like once I got out of the corporate
Right,
world, I was
right.
like, I'm floundering.
And for me, it
Just
was...
drank my way through university.
Yeah, for me, it was when menopause was an issue for me with ADHD, but also when I got a third client and realized it was a little bit harder for me to manage it all and to organize it all. And I was like, oh, shoot, something's not working here.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I get all this together? Why can't I organize
I know, and it's a
my
constant
time?
struggle every single day, right?
Yeah.
I find like I've gone through the times where I'm like so hard on myself. I'm like, why can't you just sit down and do the work? Like, why are you doom scrolling? Why are you on watching television when you know you have like a list of things you need to do for your clients? Like,
Yeah.
all of that. But
There you are binging some TV show
and you know you got stuff to do.
But that's
Do
also
you-
rest
Well,
too.
do you find now that you understand why that is, that it's easier for you to take that time and rest and not, beat yourself up about it?
No, I definitely, I find, and I'm still learning every single day because I go through like waves. Like I find like I am really gentle with myself and I'll be like, no, your work day ends at 6. And then, you're going to watch TV. Like my husband and I love binge watching TV together. It's just like a way to zone out, and whether, I don't know if that's healthy or not, but like I still get all my stuff done. So like,
I think
cool.
it is.
Yeah.
I know
It
for
is
me,
too.
I like it because it's a connection point. You can have like
Yeah.
the same conversation. You can have conversations about what you're watching, or but it's also just wind down time.
that's right. And I find, but then I go through times where I'm like, I start to get into the habit of being really hard on myself again and being like, no, you didn't get those last 3 things done today. You need to sit down and be on your computer till 11 p.m. And when I don't, I'm mad at myself.
I
So
feel like we are the same person.
that's great. We relate. That's fantastic.
'Cause I definitely relate to that.
Great.
That's great. 'Cause I definitely relate. That's fantastic. 'Cause I definitely relate to that. That's fantastic. 'Cause I definitely relate to that. 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 'Cause I
Looking to relax and rejuvenate? Treat yourself at Bello Day Spa. Located in the heart of Bedford West, from luxurious facials and brow services to soothing massages, waxing, and perfect manis, pedis, their team has you covered. Bello Day Spa isn't just a place for pampering. Their friendly staff will help you find the perfect skincare products from their wide selection of premium lines. Ready to refresh your routine? Book your appointment today and discover why Bello Day Spa is your neighborhood go-to spot for relaxation and self-care. Bello Day Spa, your local relaxation retreat. What would you have told your younger self?
Oh man, I would have told younger Stephanie that everything's going to work out. That it's okay that you are different, that your brain doesn't work the same way that everyone else's does. Or I know everybody's brain works differently. That you weren't going to be stuck in the lifestyle of your family for your entire life, and that you're going to grow and be successful, and everything's going to be fantastic, and you're going to build a great life for yourself.
Nice. Are you proud of yourself?
I really am. Very proud of what I've been able to achieve, considering all the circumstances. I still can't believe some of the success I have. There goes the imposter syndrome, right? I look back and say, like, I can't believe that I did that, like with the wedding show. I remember walking around this year and being like, no, wait, like I planned this. So yeah, I am proud of myself. I have those moments where I'm like, congrats, give yourself a pat on the back, girlfriend.
But do you think anybody else is out there going, she planned this? Like,
No, not at all.
Right.
Everybody's like, you're incredible. My entire support system they can't believe it. The common question I'm asked is like, you must have a huge team behind you to plan the wedding show and plan weddings. And I'm like, no, the wedding show I plan all on my own because I'm a control freak. Yes, I need to work on that. But so I plan that from start to finish on my own, and I have a great team that works behind me for weddings. But yeah.
well, you are you identify as the superhuman type of imposter. Mm-hmm. So trying to do all the things all by yourself, and be everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I directly tied for a very long time my self-worth to achieving more and more and more and being everything to everyone and being everybody's superhero and not looking after myself. There was a time not too long ago that people took so much pride in that hustle culture too.
Oh, yeah.
Like
They still do.
They still do. And I'm not a proponent of that. I hate it when I see people working themselves into the ground and like for what? I know now that my self-worth is not tied directly to that. And I've tried really in my 40s, actually, I'm starting to like really like be more, not give so much of myself to everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, it leads to such burnout.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I found I have suffered from burnout in the past. And I really think it's something we need to avoid if we want to continue on a path of success whatsoever.
I think so too. I agree too. And I think we need to really get the younger women, mentor the younger women, the younger entrepreneurs coming up behind us that, slow down, take time. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's really hard on your self-esteem too if you're trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, that's right. Because at some point you're not going to be you're not going to be successful at one thing, and you're going to be so hard on yourself about it.
You're the one setting these expectations. Yeah. And you've said a million times, this is your timeline. Like, so change the timeline.
Right.
Yeah. Why are you trying to struggle to reach this timeline and these expectations that you set for yourself?
Yeah.
But it is that self-worth linked to productivity mindset that just, you keep moving the goalpost a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further until you're just sort of spinning out of control. So I relate to that too a lot.
Yeah. And I really try to like drive it home to like the younger people in the wedding industry, the newer people I see coming up, because it's constantly growing here because it is a huge industry now. Nothing bothers me more than when I see them like burning themselves out and like constantly being on social media and being like, I'm doing this, this, and this, and this, and this. I know that everybody views me as being really busy, and I am, but it's like to the point that to my own limits. Like I know when I'm stepping over the line and then when I need to scale back and take things easy now. It took me a long time to realize that, but like the hustle culture thing with the younger people in the wedding industry. I'm like, no, we don't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
hopefully I can be an example as I age and grow older.
I think you're a beautiful example
Oh, thank you.
Of achieving, of just achieving, of being, of growing, of taking your circumstances and being successful despite them.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's really lovely to watch what you've built.
Yeah.
And what are the plans for the future?
Lord.
What's Stephanie's big crazy dream?
Oh, geez. I have some goals in mind, obviously, because we always do, but with being very gentle on myself. I'm really wanting to grow further into the corporate market because we all know if you own a wedding industry business, you are seasonal essentially. Like things cut off for me most of the time at the end of November. And then I usually pick up a couple of corporate things throughout the year, but I want to have like an entire chapter of our business that just focuses on corporate and destination management here in Halifax, which I think we really need. So that's the next chapter. I've just finished building I had hired an incredible friend to finish building our new website, which has taken me like a year to finish because I just kept on. I'm a perfectionist, so I kept on being like, no, change this. This isn't right. Or I put it live for like 2 days and then shut it down because I was like,
Was
no.
it a perfectionist or were you scared?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Right?
That's the thing. I was
the imposter
scared
syndrome
too
might have been-
because
yeah.
my thing was, I know a lot of people that are in the corporate planning industry, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes as well. So I'm like, put it live, and then I was like, no, shut it down. But it was also, I wanted to change a couple things. So, but that's the next chapter. I want to grow that way. So that's what's going to happen. There's room for everybody in this industry.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think some of that was probably a little imposter syndrome of, not
True.
quite that whole launching of a new
Thing. Yeah.
Alex.
Yes, it's intimidating.
Alex,
I'm going
let's
through
talk
it
to
now.
you about it
Yeah.
because Alex is going through it. The
Yeah.
whole launching of a new program, a new thing, a new idea, a new concept is terrifying.
It is.
And trying to get out of your own way to get
Yeah.
it to happen.
Yeah.
You were holding yourself back. I
you
can't believe that
really-
you launched your website, then took it back down.
I did. It's crazy. I even put like, I was even on Instagram. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I was like, I hit publish on it'll be live in 72 hours. And before the 72 hours, like,
That's right. I did see that post.
And then I took it back down because I was like, I'm like, I hope nobody saw that. I know people did, but whatever. It wasn't right for me yet. And it was partly being scared and partly being like, no, I need to change a couple things. But yeah, it's always there lurking, like creeping behind. And I want to do things like get more into educating people because I'm a wealth of knowledge when it comes to hosting events here. So I want to educate people on that, but then it creeps in and I'm like, who do I think I am trying to educate other people on something? Come on.
Yes, but it's
so much experience.
It's over 15 years of experience, so why
yeah.
am I wasting that?
right. Why are you wasting that?
I don't know.
Yes.
I do need more time to like figure out how to do that, but I
Get
will.
out there and tell people about it all.
Yeah.
Listen. Okay, so are we ready?
I think so. Speed round.
Speed round.
What is this?
We could
This
harmonize.
is the fun.
This is where we ask you 5 questions
Okay.
that are not related to any of our discussions.
Oh, I love
and
this.
you just answer them. We used to say in one word, but it's not possible. So
Nobody
you just
can
answer
do it in
them
one word.
as
Just say
as
one
quickly
word.
as possible.
Okay.
We haven't updated the questions for 2025.
That's true.
Yeah. That's all right.
If you could live in any city, where would it be?
Oh my gosh. That is a really hard question to answer. I love traveling, but I haven't traveled a ton. I love living in Halifax.
Yeah.
I
of
really
course.
love it here.
Yeah.
I feel like it's part of my soul. So let's just say I love where I am.
There you
That's
go.
good.
And it's important. I mean, and I love that you're supporting local.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
What's your favorite holiday?
Oh my gosh. Okay. My favorite holiday, I'm going to say I really always used to love Christmas. So that's not it anymore because I do a lot of Christmas decorating for clients, which I love. It's great. But also I'm like, oh my God, when Christmas comes, I'm sick of it. So let's say Thanksgiving because that's when we really come together as a family and have that big old turkey and just have a good old brown fashion Christmas.
Nice.
or sorry, Thanksgiving.
Nice.
What's the first thing you do in the morning?
First thing I do in the morning is always quiet coffee time with Ted.
Oh,
Favorite.
have you met Ted?
I have
my
virtually
God.
met Ted.
Yeah.
Oh, I was kind of hoping Ted would arrive
Oh
today.
my gosh, we would
Little
not even get
teacup,
this done.
Sweet dog.
Oh, he's a lot bigger than when you met
Is
him.
he?
Yeah, but every morning we sit downstairs, no screens, don't look at my phone yet. We sit on the sofa, have 2 cups of coffee, we play, we cuddle. And I did that with my dog before that I lost right before we got Ted. It's just my absolute favorite part of the day. Oh, and Mark's there too.
Oh, yeah,
Love it. Like a meditation kind
Yeah,
of.
that's right.
What's the one thing you couldn't live without?
Ted.
Aw.
I love my Ted.
She didn't say Mark.
And Mark, okay, 2.
What's the best gift you've ever received?
That's a really hard question. I think the best gift I probably ever received would be my mother-in-law's ring that I used as my engagement ring, which is not this ring because I lost the diamond out of it. But it was the sweetest gesture ever to have a ring as my engagement ring that belonged to my mother-in-law.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. We will, in the show notes, put all of the ways that people can find you
Yep.
on social and the wedding events, and
Yeah.
Sky's the all the stuff.
Yeah.
What's your next event? When is your next event?
So right now, I'm doing an event this weekend, actually,
gosh,
with
okay.
Digby Pines. So I'm going up to Digby Pines this afternoon.
Nice.
And we're actually hosting a wedding planner event. So I've invited
cool.
a ton of wedding planners from Nova Scotia to come up and experience the place. So I've partnered with Digby Pines to offer this
Oh, that's so
whole
cool.
in-depth experience. Yeah.
Oh, that's
nice.
really-
That's kind of
that's really
cool.
smart,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
actually really smart that you
Yeah.
can. Good for
It's
you.
going to be a lot of fun. And then weddings start up in May.
Weddings start up in May. When's
Yeah.
your next wedding? When's the show?
The next show will be in November. We don't have a date set yet, but it'll be the same venue, mid-November.
Wow.
We'll get
Well,
that locked down soon.
Best of luck. I know that you said that 2024 was your best year, but 2025
Yeah,
is going
it's
to
gonna
be
be-
your best year.
I feel like it's going to be my best year.
There you
Yeah.
go. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So nice speaking with you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Imposter Sisters. Please remember, we're not doctors or mental health experts. If you're looking for mental health guidance, please see our show notes for local resources. Until next time, keep your head high, and we will see you next Tuesday.